I never need to see this again. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't fun. It wasn't Indiana Jones.
It was so Indiana Jones. It's not even funny. Hello and welcome back to the J&Z podcast. And for once, we are actually on time with a movie review. We just walked out of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I just saw it a couple hours ago, and me and Zeth have some thoughts on it, which up until about 5 minutes ago, I thought were going to be rather similar, but I think we might have some disagreements with this movie. For starters, I didn't think that it was all that bad. I thought it was perfectly fine, but even good in some parts.
Oh, we're gonna have some issues there, bud. This is gonna be an hour. I can already tell you.
I thought, that is to say, there are some issues that I will bring up with it that I thought were kind of funny, but I don't think that it disrespected the whole Indiana Jones thing. um, For instance, I thought it was a way better movie than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in just about every way. It was a lot less goofy. Um, and the ending, it was weird, but it wasn't just aliens.
Oh, geez, I'm speechless that you could even say that.
I didn't like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull that much.
I liked Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It is not as bad as people make it out to be. There are silly moments in that movie, but overall, I can forgive the sillier moments. The part at the end when like the saucer lifts out of the ground and stuff like that's a little goofy, but nothing compared to some
That's
of the
the only part
goofiness
I
in this movie.
remember. It wasn't that goofy.
Oh, Jace, come on, buddy.
What?
All right, I have my qualms.
Go for it. Go for it. I'll just
I
read them one by
I I
one.
I I wrote them down on a piece of papyrus paper.
Piece of papyrus
And
right out of the movie. Good job.
exactly. We got the get up going. Let's actually talk like it. The story and the characters were awful.
I thought they were fine.
Okay, why were they fine in your opinion?
The one lady was a little obnoxious at some points, but I can't name a single other person that was like meh even. I thought Harrison Ford did a good job, even if he was in his, you know, video game cutscene form. I thought he did all right.
I didn't like Indiana Jones in this movie. There was nothing that made me root for Indiana Jones in this movie. Neither uh, his godchild or whatever her name,
Mm-hmm.
Wombat or so. I saw this movie yesterday at an early screening of it, so some
Hmm.
things are a little lost on me. But Wombat was her name, right?
I have no idea.
It was Shaw or something like that. And then there's the little boy's name. I forget him too, but he's like the short round character.
Yes.
There was just nothing in the script that was very interesting or uplifting when it came to the characters, in my opinion. Indiana Jones, he is the Luke Skywalker in this. He's the Willow. It was everything that I was scared they were going to do, and they did it. His wife left him. His son has tragically died in the Vietnam War, and now he is a hardened old man that is a drunkard. Things that I just did not want Indiana Jones to be seen as, you know? I
How is this
mean,
any different from his role as Han Solo in the later movies?
I didn't like Han Solo's interpretation in The Force Awakens.
I didn't mind it
I
personally.
didn't either. I didn't. I thought it was a slap in the face just as much as this is, just as much as Luke Skywalker's character is, or just as much as what they did to Willow in the Willow show.
I disagree with that. Literally, his character in both of these movies is like the semi slick talking but semi laid back but clever guy, and that's just what you do with him. You make him kind of older and grumpier but still clever.
You can make them a little grumpier. There's no problem with that, but to have their entire life thrown out the window and uh, everything that you love about the character completely demolished, or it's not the character that you remember. or that you know. For instance, Han Solo is not Han Solo in The Force Awakens. He's not Indiana Jones in this new movie. Luke Skywalker was not Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. I'm just sick and tired of every single one of these older characters that we love and appreciate so much. And these people just come in that have no idea what they're doing, and they walk all over them and treat them like garbage.
They're old people. That's what people do with old people.
Oh God, jeez. I'm just saying, like, I just don't want to see, like, even so, like, I understand the man is in his 80s, right, or his late 80s.
I don't know if I know he wasn't fit for an adventure, and
Yeah,
that's kind of what you're supposed to. That's what they were telling it as, is an old him.
I suppose, and there's some things I liked that they still kept. Like, I'm glad that he was able to still keep a punch. Like,
Yeah,
he gets punched lots of times. He gets shot a lot of times in this movie. He's able to keep going despite that. I liked that, and I like that he was still able to throw a punch. You know, it's got the classic like head exploding sound effect when someone gets punched in the face. I love that so much. Um, there's just too much with him that I had qualms about as the movie went on. In the beginning, I didn't mind it as much.
that was when he was at his. Okay, I get it. He was kind of passive throughout the movie, right? Like, he just kind of went along with most things, and he was kind of dragged into it more than looking for an adventure.
Yeah, and I got no problem with that aspect to it. Like, if he's dragged into something, because that's usually how his adventures are, rather than uh, kind of like the first movie, Raiders, where it's like he's hired by the government to go and search for the Holy or the Ark of the Covenant, while the other ones are more so like he gets dragged into an adventure. So I don't mind him getting dragged into this adventure at an older age.
Right, and I'd argue those sequel movies are not nearly as good as one would remember, and are far more like this one. If you went to go rewatch them, it kind of makes me kind of want to go watch the old Indiana Jones movies
Oh
just
yeah,
to
and
see if that's right.
oh yeah, like Indiana Jones to me is so much more important to me than Star Wars ever was.
Hmm.
Because Star Wars, you know, everyone has their story of how they remember Star Wars, you know, like how they remember watching it for the first time. I don't have that story, surprisingly. I don't remember watching Star Wars for the very first time. And I wasn't that kid that played with Star Wars toys at an early age. Star Wars wasn't a thing for me at a young age.
Hmm.
Indiana Jones was, though. Like, I remember the first time watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, popping in the VHS tape. I remember watching Temple of Doom for the first time, Last Crusade. I remember the drum up and the excitement for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in 2008. You know, my dad showing me the trailer at his work computer. You know, I, Indiana Jones was so much more important to me. So that's why I have so many gripes with this movie as compared to a lot of other people might have.
I've come to the understanding over the years that the reason why remakes are so terrible most of the time, that when they dredge up old properties and whatnot and they try to reintroduce them, it never works, is because they don't have the wow factor. It was ahead of its time when it came out. How could it live up to something that it created? He wasn't really a cliche that much beforehand. Maybe based off of, like, yeah, maybe it was a cliche, but that was one of the first movies that just kind of made his character, like, people like Nathan Drake and whatnot, based off of him pretty much to a T. So when you watch it now, it just feels like a cliche, but it's because they created the cliche that it can never live up to it. But as
Well, I
far
mean, like
as
Indiana
those movies
Jones was
go,
based off of all those. It's like Star Wars and Indiana Jones. They were based off of all those old serials where it's like, hey, tune in next week to find out what Buck Rogers is up to and how he'll get out of this situation.
that's true.
Um,
That's true,
but
at
okay,
least
so bringing it back to this movie,
yeah.
just I didn't like the characters and how they were portrayed. I didn't like the Godchild's character either. And at first, I didn't mind her as much. I was thinking in my head, okay, this isn't as bad as what people made it out to be. Like, Um, a lot of people just didn't like her with a lot of the early press. They were saying that she was one of the worst aspects of the movie. And at first I was like, she's not that bad. Like, she's more so kind of like a Marion character where, uh, she can take a punch, she can punch back. Marion was like that in the first movie.
Mm.
But then as the movie went on, she just became not miserable, but just very unlikable in my opinion. Like she's constantly talking about how she's out for money. She doesn't want it in the museum, and that's kind of a good like comparison to Indiana Jones. But at the same time, it was just all about her. She was a very self-centered character, and there wasn't anything behind that money. Like, oh, I'm trying to raise this kid. You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't a single line that sort of like led me to believe that she wanted to sell these objects to take care of this kid or maybe some other kids that she had.
Yeah, that did come out of nowhere, to an extent. You can tell that Indiana Jones, even from the first movie, does it kind of out of the love for archaeology and whatnot. And throughout the movie, he's like, "We'll donate it to a museum." He's always been very consistent in that. Her character setup was okay initially, based on being the guy's daughter, but that was literally where the similarities ended, and where she didn't get any personality from her dad. It wasn't to honor her dad or anything or resume his research. She was just in it for money without a cause, like you were saying. I 100% agree. I was
And
not
they
thrilled with
try
her
to drum
character.
up like the drama or the emotions with her character. I get it. She came from like a broken home. I don't know. They didn't say anything about a mother character, so there you go. But the
Well, she
dad
was
went
there.
crazy. I didn't see her in the movie, but like the dad went crazy.
Yes.
Uh, and so she kind of never really had a proper childhood. And they're always piecing these things together, like, oh, dad made me do puzzles as a way to do my chores or something like that.
Yeah, no, the dad made her smart, but it wasn't like out of a drive for it's like I can finally bring it together what dad was looking for. I can finally figure out why he didn't, love me or something. Like just why he focused on this for so long. They could have done that. Maybe it would have been cliche, but it still would have just been better than, you know,
Yeah, and they
money.
try to like drum up her emotions of why she's doing this more so than the money. Like there is a line that Jones says at the near the end, like, "Oh, you don't memorize your father's journals just for the sake of money or whatever."
Yeah, but it never like it doesn't
That's like
really
as
come
far as it
through.
goes. That's as
That's
far
it.
as it goes. Other than that, she's just as the movie went on, she just kind of became miserable for me. Like I just didn't want to care or I just didn't care about her at all. And that's sad because, the women of Indiana Jones movies are always so written interesting and uh they're fascinating characters and they make you want to root for them or have Indiana Jones save them or whatnot. This I just was like just go away, I just didn't really care.
The character writing that I noticed that the character writing in this movie was not super awesome. None of the dialogue really stood out to me. What they did was they did a really good job with the setting. Like it really did feel like 70s America and throughout the world. And they wrote the twist and everything else kind of came second to that. They're like, what is the overarching story? How does this thing work? They got that down. Then they got the setting down pretty well. But the characters, beyond the initial scenes and whatnot, none of their dialogue, none of their interactions really meant anything, and it was all just to further the plot along, to get to the next chase scene, to get to whatever.
Yeah, I agree. And there was good lines in there, like, Indiana Jones says, I've seen things in my life, but few things I can't explain, or something along those aspects. And the same thing, uh, near the end, he says one more line that I really liked, but they were trailer lines almost. It wasn't something where it
Yeah,
felt
no, quite
natural in the
literally.
movie.
When I was looking up this movie, that was quite literally the quote they put at the bottom. It's like, this is not an iconic line. Maybe it is. I could be wrong. I
I
don't
don't
think it
know,
is.
but I mean, like, just a lot of what he said, like, I liked a lot of the lines written that he spoke. It just felt very trailer written, not
Yes.
natural conversation.
But what do you think? What do you think of the actual story, though? I
That's
don't
the thing I have the biggest qualm with here
really the
because
time travel aspect. You thought it was
e- e-
better. You thought time travel was more absurd than
everything,
aliens in a giant UFO.
yes, because everything with the story fell apart for me once they went to um
You know,
when
wherever. Yes.
Shaw is trying to like sell the first half of the dial.
Oh yeah.
Once that
There.
chase scene starts up, that's when the movie started to fall apart for me very quickly because I don't know, I just started to get bored. Like, and that's something you never want to be said with an Indiana Jones movie of all things. Like, I was bored out of my mind almost the entire length of the movie.
Really.
Uh, yeah, I was really disheartened, and John Williams is trying his best with the musical score and stuff, but it wasn't implemented very well in my opinion. Uh, the action was way too shaky cam and was very poorly edited in my opinion. But
I don't.
I mean,
I
like
never saw
those,
that at all. You make it sound like it's just Cloverfield with the handheld. Like,
but
it's
those,
not.
but those are the things like that start to travel through your mind once the story falls apart. If the story and what's on screen is not interesting or exciting, the rest is what you're going to start to pick apart slowly. And that's
I
just what happened for this movie. I thought the time dial was not a good MacGuffin. There was nothing that was interesting about it. It was just a MacGuffin item. It wasn't like
That is every Oh my god, that is literally every Indiana
but there
Jones
was
movie I've
nothing
ever watched.
but there was nothing interesting about it. There was no
Everything was interesting about it. How exactly it worked, what you needed
but
to do to use it.
there was
What does
no
the Ark of the Covenant do? It was literally a box until the last
but the
5
dial,
minutes.
there's no mystery behind it. You know it's a time device because that's what they say right in the beginning. Oh, my father thought it was something you could travel back in time with. Okay, whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, but then,
It's not
like,
like the Ark of the Covenant where it's like you have no idea what's going to happen when that thing gets opened
you slowly
throughout the
it's
entire
not
movie.
a crazy
Or
plot twist, but him trying to see who gets it first in order to do what and preventing the who's from the 40s and 30s from getting it to, like, kill their leader.
you
And
can say that stuff on YouTube.
no, you can't.
Yes, you can. I'm going to mention it because that's one of the most surprising things about this movie.
What? There being Nazis in a Indiana Jones movie?
Well, yeah, because more so the time period. I thought it was goofy that Nazis were still a part of the story. I just
I
they weren't
100%.
implemented very well. I thought what should have happened was instead of Archimedes' dial, it should have been a dial commissioned by Hitler. That would have made the beginning a little more more sense because
It does not.
no. I'm just listen
The
to me.
ancient artifact that at the time would have been 30 years old. It's an Indiana
But
Jones movie.
it wouldn't have been an ancient artifact at that time, so that's why Indiana Jones would have just brushed it aside. It would have made more sense because when his friend has the dial there,
Yeah.
uh he kind of just brushes it aside and goes on. And I understand that's because of the action scene, but at the same time, the dial was not interesting enough of a MacGuffin. I thought that the spear of Christ in the beginning, when they're saying it's a fake and stuff like that, I thought that was a more interesting MacGuffin, the spear that pierced Christ.
Yeah. I don't know.
I
They
just
didn't
thought the
explain what it
dial
did or
was
nothing.
like, I just thought the dial was just like, I mean, like how, uh, it just sounds like a committee wrote that, just like, or like a fanboy. Like the first thing you walk up to some fanboy of Indiana Jones, hey, what should the next MacGuffin be? Well, they've done some religious artifacts. They've done some weird artifacts with the aliens and the stones in Temple of Doom. Why don't we do time travel? It's just it wasn't special. There wasn't anything that felt like
It is quite literally
unique.
the only new thing they could have done. I'm down for a down to earth adventure, but it's
I
not going to
wanted
be
another
something we hadn't
religious
seen
artifact.
before.
That's why I got excited in the beginning when they showed off the spear of Christ. I was just like, okay. And then the dial, they brush that aside and the dial shows up and I'm just like, eh.
Not okay, so not all aspects of the dial make sense because he was well, actually I guess you could totally work your way around it.
Well, just hear my thoughts on the dial even more so, because with all of Indiana Jones MacGuffins, there has always been something to cover up the questions you have about the MacGuffin item. Why is the Ark of the Covenant, why is it having these things come out and killing people? It's a religious artifact. You can just brush that aside. You're like, okay, religious artifact. You don't think about anything else. Same thing with the stones in Temple of Doom. It's, from some village in the mountains and you have voodoo curses with it. You just think about that and nothing else. The questions you have, you can brush aside with that explanation alone. Same thing with the Cup of Christ or the Holy Grail. It's a religious artifact. Same thing even with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's interdimensional beings. That's why their heads were magnetized or their skulls. You can brush that aside. With the dial, it was made by Archimedes in the BC times. And the best they explain is just, oh, he was a really smart mathematician, so that's why he was able to create this. It's like,
They quite literally do that in the
what?
movie. They say the planets don't quite line up perfectly on a perfect axis. This it creates gravitational fission or time fissions, and then it's quite literally as throwaway as every other explanation for how stuff works in any other movie.
Yeah, it made no sense. There wasn't something like interesting, like, oh,
It made no sense
Archimedes.
because it made too much sense. Is that what you're saying?
No, 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 no. It it made no sense because there was nothing to like make Archimedes out to be like this person. Like, yeah, sure, Archimedes was a smart man, but the minute you say he created a time device that could find rifts in time, like, what? If you told me he was a part of some cult or he had a wizard infuse the device and something like that, then I could brush off any other criticisms I had about the device, probably. But because they just were like, oh yeah, Archimedes, he was a smart dude. He did math, and that's how he was able to find this out. It's like,
His whole thing was planets
what?
and stuff. That was his whole thing.
I
So
understand that,
he
but
was the leading. I get
it
what
just,
you're saying.
I just didn't like the dial of Archimedes. I thought it was just hokey and
That is quite literally every like just brushing anything off as like magic or whatever too is the same deal. It makes even less sense. Like I'd rather it just be what it is. Archimedes was a smart guy. They had to tear it in two. It kind of adds to the lore. And it is kind of neat that they have like the self-fulfilling prophecy part of it with the airplanes and whatnot found in the future going back into the past. It was just kind of hints as to what was going to happen, and I didn't hate that part at all.
I I guess, but there was no mystery surrounding the item either. You
You
knew what
didn't know
it
where
did,
yeah,
and
no
you
you
knew
didn't.
why
You
it
had
did
no idea
it.
what it does. The guy thought it was the
I
guy
understand
did you
that.
not understand the movie? Like
No,
they
no, no, no,
thought it
no.
was a time travel device, and
I
it technically
understand that.
is.
It's a technical thing and it finds rifts in certain time things because of math on the thing. I understand all that. I'm just saying they explained it in such detail. First of all, there was no mystery to it. There was no mystery surrounding the device like the cup of the Holy Grail or the crystal skulls or the stones or the Ark of the Covenant. First of all, when you explain every single detail about the dial, it makes it less mysterious. Also, it was just way too silly, and I couldn't suspend disbelief that Archimedes in BC times could do this. It just, I'm sorry, I couldn't suspend that disbelief.
That okay, that's
I
fair.
could have if they said, like I said, if he was a part of some religious cult and they sacrificed people and the blood was in the dial or something like that, or he
No,
had
well he didn't
wizards and
make the
infuse it.
rift. He just found it.
But I'm just saying, like, that just is silly to me. And unless you have some like other. I don't know.
The
I
whole
didn't.
point was he thought he could go back in time to Nazi Germany and kill him. But that's not what the device did. The device only ever went to that specific time period, and
And that's kind of silly.
he made it because they were under attack. He knew it was coming. He'd been working on it, and he got it working
Yeah,
so
that's
that
just
in the
silly.
past they could come destroy him. It's
I,
no
that
sillier than aliens
that's
coming down from above
no,
and
that's
filling a
just
person's
silly.
mind until it explodes,
No, that's
or
cooler
just
though. At
a
least.
box with stuff coming out of it and killing everybody. That is quite literally a textbook ending for these kinds of movies. Quite literally.
Okay, since we're on this whole thing, going back in time was stupid. I'm sorry. It was
It was
stupid in an Indiana
as
Jones movie.
again, you're since I knew for a fact because you would totally defend Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. There is not
But
one single aspect that is not stupider than the aliens. The
I'm
aliens
not saying
ruined
Crystal
that
Skull
movie.
is perfect. Crystal Skull is meddled with problems. But Dial of Destiny, I mean, I never have to see this movie again. It's going to be like The Last Jedi for me, or Rise of Skywalker, or Force Awakens, or Willow. I just never have to see this ever again. Going back in time and having Indiana Jones meet Archimedes is an interesting thought on paper. It's an interesting thought. Like, oh, the man who has such a respect and renowned, knowledge of history is finally meeting some of the people and seeing history being witnessed. It's a cool thought on paper, but in execution, I'm just sitting there in the theater, just bored and thinking this is goofy. This is fan fiction. I mean,
I
that's
find it
just the
hard to
way I'm feeling.
differentiate any movie from its original as not being fan fiction. What is Jurassic Park 2 and 3 fan fiction? What is the other two Indiana Jones movies? Literally the same thing, but they're just older so they get a pass. That is all they ever were, quite truly. And they're still good movies. But you know what? Well, not okay, but a lot of those aren't even that great of movies, but that's my whole point. But they get a pass for being old. Because it's a refresh, because it's
No,
being dredged up again, it's under a lot more
no,
scrutiny as it is. So if it's not the exact same story again,
no, that's not it. Those three movies and King of the Crystal Skull, a lot of people disavow it and all that other stuff, whatever. But those three movies are so good in quality and writing and how it's shot and how its characters are portrayed. Its ending with Indiana Jones and his dad riding off into the sunset. Just, you're beating a dead horse with Harrison Ford's character here. That's just what it feels like. And I'm one of the few people that I think you can do Indiana Jones different. Indiana Jones should have been James Bond. Now, just hear me out on this. This movie to me proved that there was nobody else that could do Indiana Jones besides Harrison Ford, George Lucas, and Steven Spielberg together. Harrison Ford's version of Indiana Jones, though. Because, first of all, Lucas had nothing on this project. He contributed nothing. Same thing with Steven Spielberg. He was like a producer, an executive producer, which big whoop-de-doo. So when you just have Harrison Ford, it's like our podcast. Like, you can't have the J&Z podcast without each other. We contribute both wise. That's the same thing with this character. So what I thought they should have done when Disney bought Lucasfilm was turned Indiana Jones into James Bond. Have 3 movies, or 4 or 5, for each character that you cast. So, for instance, when they first did it, they could have cast a no-name actor. Said, we're rebooting Indiana Jones. It's going to be like James Bond, where every single 5 years you're going to get a new character.
that is such a bad idea.
No, no,
That is, you would complain so hard, and I
no, I
know
wouldn't.
you would. Just like Men in Black, just like literally every other movie that they've replaced the main character with, besides what that and Doctor Who, people don't care as much.
But
Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, it should have been like Doctor Who or James Bond, where it's still Indiana Jones. They just cast a different person every so often, and then you can tell different stories. And that way you don't have to continue with this old man persona of Indiana Jones.
I'd like to argue, look, quite literally this again. I don't think Indiana Jones is all that different than what he was in the old movies. Was he ever that happy to be anywhere in the other movies?
Yeah, he was
Only
an
when he found the
adventurer.
artifact. But half the time he was getting shot at. It's the same thing.
I'm just saying, like, the story didn't work for me. So when the story doesn't work, that's when I'm going to start nitpicking other things, because I was bored the whole time. So I'm nitpicking other things.
I did you like the underwater scene? It was okay, but it was fine, right?
Okay, that is actually, I do have my positives of this movie, though. It's not all negative. The negative outweighs the bad, in my opinion, but I did like that snake joke. The snake joke was pretty funny. When they're on
Yeah.
this boat and they're having to dive down deep into this, I don't know, this trench or whatever. And all of a sudden there's something that moves in the water, and the one character is like, "Is there sharks in here?" And Antonio Banderas is like, "No, but there's eels." And all of a sudden it shows Harrison Ford like really, really scared, and the one kid is like, "Ah, they look like snakes." And he's like, "No, they don't." That kind of
I
got a little giggle out of me.
yeah. I don't know. I'm not saying this is the best movie of all time. Not even close. But I don't feel like it was actively disrespectful. It actually kind of paid homage to it in the introduction. Again, you could tell it was CGI Harrison Ford. But it's probably the best CGI Harrison Ford I'm going to see. They did better than CGI Princess Leia. They did better than, I don't know, any other time they've done it.
I
Was like,
wasn't impressed with this de-aging um, of Harrison Ford. I would have been impressed if the whole movie was de-aged Harrison Ford, like they wanted to just, let's not even do Old Man Indy. Let's just de-age him the whole entire movie. Or
yeah, they're
even like
not
if
there
they
yet.
wanted to do a TV show.
A fun flashback where he barely was on screen showing his face was fine. Not a whole movie. That'd be horrendous. And with a
No,
TV show budget, that'd be even, oh my
but
goodness.
we're talking about a $323 million production here. So I was not impressed with their de-aging here for 20 minutes.
I thought it looked great. I thought it looked as good as you're gonna get in this current whatever.
Boba Fett, Luke Skywalker looked so much better.
I don't know.
It did, and it could be because, it's blown up to such a proportion you're watching compared to when you're watching a TV show just on your smaller screen, but I was not impressed with the de-aging. And that first 20 minutes, I will say one thing. I was impressed that Disney did not Disneyfy this movie. Those 20 minutes proved to me that they weren't going to, make this kid friendly like the Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Right, no, they that was action.
Yeah, and they didn't, and because you have Nazis and stuff, I felt like I was like, okay, are they gonna, just say like Jungle Cruise almost like Jungle Cruise? They have Nazis in the movie, but it's like they mention it once and it's never ever brought up again. With this, it literally says the logo Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and then it says like Walt Disney Pictures and Paramount or Lucasfilm, and then right when those words go away, first thing you see is like a big
The
fat
whole banners,
swastika.
that's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, you see swastikas everywhere in this movie. I was
They made it in no uncertain terms that was indeed 1942 Germany.
well, even like when the characters at the end like change into their Nazi garb, like there's a swastika right there in front of the camera. Like I was surprised that Disney, first of all, they had their name on this because Star Wars they never put their name before it. So with Indiana Jones, I'm surprised they would first of
I
all
have
have the
not seen the
castle.
Lucasfilm even. I have not seen Lucasfilm in forever. Not even on. Of course, I don't think they were on the Star Wars ones. Maybe they were, but I don't remember it being as prominent. I don't
I
know.
don't know.
It's pretty clear that they're not advocating nothing. Of course, it's just part of the movie, and it's always been part of Indiana Jones to have him fight the Nazis. That's just kind of what it was.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I was just surprised because right when I saw the Disney logo, that shocked me because like I said, Star Wars they never show the Disney logo. They show the Paramount Productions logo. I was surprised that Paramount had a hand in this.
Yeah.
And like I said, right when the Disney like words go away, there's a big old swastika and Germans and stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, they're not gonna, you know, kid friendly. It's gonna be an adult movie, and same thing with, I mean, plenty of people die in this, and pretty gruesome ways. Like the villain, he gets his face melted off, and it shows it in the camera.
I'd
One
argue they did
guy
that
gets
with
his
Guardians too, but
oh yeah, like yeah, one guy he gets his brains blown up, and uh, that's kind of shown,
crazy stuff.
and
Yeah, that is
uh,
crazy.
plenty of people get shot, and there's blood that's shown. It's not just like boom, shot you and doesn't show anything. I mean, there's plenty of stuff that warrants this being an Indiana Jones movie.
I don't know. I always found the Indiana Jones movies to be kind of campy, and despite me not liking a couple characters and the dialogue, I still don't hate the movie. I still thought it was fine. It's not breaking any records, not setting new ground, but it wasn't actively disrespectful like a Last Jedi or something. Like it wasn't spitting on you.
Oh, I felt
At
like it
worst,
was.
there's no shot that it's anything worse for you than just mediocre. I
No,
wish The Last Jedi was mediocre.
no. Last Jedi was a good movie by
Oh
itself.
my gosh, you
No,
are
no, no,
the
no, no.
most predictable human being I've
No, no, no,
ever
no, no.
met.
Just listen to me. Last Jedi is a good movie as in terms of how it's shot, its music, but as in terms of it being a good Star Wars movie, no. Last Jedi, if you had someone that didn't know anything about Star Wars walk into that theater, I'm sure they would have said, yeah, that's good. But
Uh,
as someone that grows
Four
up with
words,
Star
Zeph.
Wars,
4 words. Somehow, Palpatine returned,
that's
and
the
I didn't even
Rise of
need to use the last
Skywalker.
word. It's even. Oh wait, Rise of Skywalker. Wait, which one am I thinking of?
Get out of here. You don't know nothing about Star Wars or Indiana
Wait,
Jones.
which movie did I say?
Last Jedi.
Oh, Last Jedi. Oh, Last Jedi was okay. Yeah, that was fine. I meant Rise of Skywalker. I thought that's what we were talking about. Sorry,
Oh,
that's my bad.
jeez. Oh, man. We're going to have some issues here, but if we ever go through those movies or the
No,
other
I don't
Jones
hate. I don't
movies.
hate that movie. It just was kind of weird at some points, but I thought it was okay. I thought it was all right.
Mm,
I'm actually with you on that one. I thought you were saying you liked the Rise of Skywalker, and that's what you
no,
were
Rise
saying.
of Skywalker is a bad movie and a bad Star Wars movie. Last
That's what I'm
Jedi
referring to. That one you wish
is a
was mediocre.
competently made film, but a terrible Star Wars movie. All right,
They
what
can
other
fly
issues
now.
do I have with this? Okay,
What
the
else you got?
beginning. I did not enjoy the beginning as others did. It had its parts. Like I enjoyed
That was
obviously
Indiana Jones. That was the part you'd like the most of any of it.
I understand that, but there's a lot of things that was missing also because Spielberg was not at the helm, and I felt that immediately. Usually I am not a person to compare directing or how one director's style is compared to another, but I felt it immediately as the camera started rolling on this movie. Steven Spielberg, when he shoots his action scenes, first of all, you can tell what's going on. Even if something is shaky cam or he quick cuts it together to make it more exciting, you still are able to piece every single thing together and tell what is going on. But usually Spielberg, he tries to make sure like they're long takes and you can tell what's going on. With the beginning here, James Mangold, he made it shaky cam, and anytime something was going on, like whenever they were on the motorcycle, like he was punching out the Nazi on the motorcycle and trying to go up to the train, I couldn't tell what was going on because the editing was first of all spliced together so stinking fast, and it was shaky camera on top of that, so I just didn't know what was going on.
I don't know. I didn't have that issue, and the fight train scene too was just every other train fight scene I've ever seen. I
Yeah.
don't think it was abhorrently whatever, but I thought it was competent. It didn't look bad or that much better than any other one. You look up, you go in a tunnel, you get hit by the thing. That's literally that's a train fight.
Yeah, like I mean, it's cool that they had this idea to throw Indiana Jones with a de-age and have it be 20 minutes. It's impressive. But at the same time, I just was not impressed as much as I would have hoped I was. Like you said, the train scene was pretty bare bones. The only thing I liked about
I
that
did like
entire
the
scene.
anti-aircraft gun. That was kind of cool.
Okay, yeah, the sound effects. We'll get into that later. Um, the only thing I liked about that whole train scene is when Jones is like having to disguise himself, and all of a sudden he has to uh, go through these barracks of Nazis that are sleeping on the train. He's like, "How many Nazis are there?" He says like, "There's too many Nazis." And then he opens up the next door, and it's like a whole like
Party,
car
yeah.
full of them eating. So that was kind of funny.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I actually liked it. I liked the beginning. I felt he was. There's still an uncanny valley. It's literally just like his
Is.
face looked like a really good video game cutscene. That's about where that's at.
That's the best I can describe it to.
But that's not terrible. It's not like I didn't see it, but I heard the Flash. It wasn't quite that. It was on the low end of video game cutscenes, so it could be worse. Truly,
But I'm able to forgive the Flash more because the story and its characters were good. Indiana Jones, I would have liked that first scene more, that first 20 minutes more, if the rest of the story was good.
I still don't think that it's that much better or worse than any other story. The only thing I can knock it for is is it being the fifth movie. They ramp up over time. That's what happens. The stakes have to be raised. So what's bigger than aliens? You know, literal time travel. Like
Yeah, and that's
I
just
don't
silly.
mind when
Like,
movies reel it back in, but I don't
why
know.
not have it? I don't know. They could have done so many better ideas. Um. Okay, so also another thing I miss about Spielberg, I noticed it when we went back to Harrison Ford and you know him being older now. Whenever the characters were talking, like I said, I never nitpick a guy who directs or the editing hardly, unless it's super, super bad. But with this, what Spielberg always did with Indiana Jones, when they were describing something, it was one shot takes all the time. Or if they were trying to make it exciting, he would piece it together in an exciting way, like have it be like, oh, Indiana Jones, he's telling about something that do with the Ark of the Covenant. It zooms in on his face and it's a one shot, like something that makes it exciting. James Mangold, all he does anytime two characters are speaking in this movie, it's every single time two characters are speaking. It's just a shot on their face talking, shoot back to the character's reaction, shoot back to what Indiana Jones is talking, shoot back to his godchild. It was the most traditional directing slash editing I've ever seen. I
wouldn't call it bad.
missing
You could call it
Spielberg.
mediocre, but it's hard to compare to Steven Spielberg, you know?
Below average.
Below average, it was fine. It was
That was this
fine. He
entire
made
movie
up
for
for
me.
it for some cool shots throughout. I don't feel like I've seen movies with
I
way
can't
worse.
name one unique shot in this movie. There's not anything that I can think of.
There's only so many ways you can film something. Quite literally, there's so many movies with so
But
many
you can
action
still
scenes.
do something interesting or cool.
I guess
this
there
whole
was no
entire
unique
movie
shots, but I wouldn't say there was that many objectively bad shots. I thought some of the like landscapes were really cool looking. I thought he did a good job setting the scene in various ways. I don't know. It was more. I did not distract me from the movie at all.
I was
So,
I don't know. I like I said in the beginning of this, there's so much that is missing from this movie because George Lucas and Steven Spielberg aren't a part of it. It
they
just
were a
felt
part of it.
soulless to me.
They were both somewhere in there. Like they
No,
were like
Lucas
not
had nothing to
nothing,
do with
but
this movie.
Lucas wasn't. Was it Spielberg and George
Spielberg
Williams?
was John Williams was the music
John Williams?
guy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I felt the music was placed way too weirdly. It wasn't put in the movie very well. It started to get distracting also when there was way too many do 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 do. There was way too many of those.
There was a couple, but they were
I was like, by the
I
fifth
wish they
one,
timed them
I'm
a bit
like,
better.
okay. And the same thing with Indy's hat. There was way too many moments when like he puts it on his head and the camera goes up to his face and he's like, he says something, some line. I'm like, by the third time he did that, I'm like, okay, come on, guys.
The hat thing, yeah. But
I'm like, all right, because he
but
does
we're
it in the
just
beginning. He
nitpicking
does it,
at this point. It is
but like I said, because the story and the characters did not work for me, that's what makes the other things so bad, in my opinion. If this movie had way more good things, like that beginning, like if the entire movie was that beginning, I probably would be able to say it's good. But
it
because you have it,
was it was what's the difference between the train chase scene that was by all definitions the most
it was
standard
interesting.
train thing I've ever seen. I did like walking through it. That was kind of neat.
It was interesting. Like I said, I liked that beginning MacGuffin item, the Spear of Christ. I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. Where are we going with this?
It's a
And then
fake.
right when they were like, oh yeah, it's a fake. I'm like, okay.
But they had a cool dial.
Wow, Jace. Stupid. I
Well,
don't know.
yours is a literal spear. And that's it.
It's the head of the spear.
Yeah, no, sorry, not the whole spear, just part of it.
Yeah. And like I said, there's something that's like interesting about that. Like, okay, what were the Nazis going to use it for? Why would they be interested in this? Do they think it's got some magical properties because it pierced Christ? Like, is that like their reason? Like, those things are going through your head as the movie's going on. And
Yeah.
once they say it is like, oh, it's a fake, it's like, oh, okay. It's like all that excitement just cuts off. And the dial, like I said, there's nothing mysterious about it. You know what was going to happen, regardless of if you thought it was going to be a time machine or something to just take you back to a very specific place. It does the same thing in the end.
It does, but I cannot fault
It
the
takes
movie
you.
for it making
It's
too
an
much
item that
sense.
takes you back in time, and I just did not like that. I thought
It's why, but it's okay. It's okay. And the aliens,
I don't know.
the aliens. She called the aliens down to get all the knowledge in the universe. What is that?
I'm just
What
saying, like, there's
that
still like something interesting about that. The dial, there was just nothing that like I didn't want to like. I didn't want to know what the dial did. I didn't want to know who made the dial. I didn't care.
that's I don't know. I thought they made it compelling enough. The 90% of the movie was searching for it, and the last 10% was actually using it, which by all accounts was at least interesting to watch. And I don't think it was once they did aliens, it was all over. Nothing was too dumb at that point, and I didn't think it was dumb enough to where it was stupid, totally out of character for the series because they had aliens. That's quite literally where I stand on that.
I don't know. I just thought that everything that you could have done wrong with this movie, or all of your gripes that you had, that fans have had with Star Wars or Willow, they are elevated here to the max. And I just like anyone who was mad at The Last Jedi, like I was mad, but I'm not as big of a Star Wars fan as I am Indiana Jones. So that's why like I'm not mad at this movie. I'm just sad that this is the last movie with Harrison Ford before they do something else like rebooting it or like I said taking a James Bond approach, which I wouldn't mind.
I hope they don't. I hope they just lay it. I hope they come up with something else. Just come up with something else. It's
You
so
can't
easy.
because
I could come up
George
with 10 good ideas right now.
no, Lucasfilm is supposed to be ideas based off of George Lucas.
Yeah,
That's it.
I will send them a letter. I have so many good ideas, and I haven't even thought about them yet.
I don't know. This movie is definitely going to flop hard though.
My theater is kind of empty. We'll see. We'll see.
Y-
The
Oh, it
critic
is.
scores. I only looked at them after they seem to be very mixed. Audience scores seem to be a bit higher, but they could totally change as it comes out. So I
What's
don't know what
the
the
I know the critic score is like 55%, which is accurate for this movie, but like what's the
audience is about 80.
audience? Yeah, no. Not
I
even
don't know if
close.
that'll stick. I would say it's, but that's tomatoes. That's Rotten Tomatoes. So
This is like a 3 out of 10 for me.
that is so not a. Have you seen a 3 out of 10 movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is
It's just not
not
a 3
but
out of
I'm
10.
trying to also take into account the budget. The budget for this
That
movie
is so
is
irrelevant.
Jace,
That
the
is quite.
budget for everything. When you are talking 323 million, do you know how much money that is? That's a
Yeah,
lot
it's
of
a lot
money.
of that's a lot
They
of
could
money.
have hired some more competent script writers.
I don't know. Endgame cost 500 million, and it was pretty okay.
Endgame was mixed with Infinity War.
Yeah, which totally helped it. By the way, by itself, you can look at any Marvel movie basically.
I'm just saying, for a $323 million movie, there was way too much CGI, first of all, for an Indiana Jones movie. I understand he's older, so some things you have to, but at the same time, it's Indiana Jones. And I thought they would learn their lesson from King with the Crystal Skull to not implement too much. They didn't.
They did not. That's true.
Too much
I'll give you
CGI.
that.
Way too much CGI. Anytime there was a plane, anytime there was a car, it just, you could tell.
Yes, that is 100% true.
Its writing was not $323 million worth. It just wasn't.
I also agree.
The way
it was okay.
Thank you. The way it treated its characters, this wasn't a Top Gun Maverick, and it could have been, where, it just treated the characters like you could have still maybe had Indiana Jones like down on his luck or down in the dumps. But it's just not the way they did. Like, he's divorced and a drunkard and his kid's dead in the beginning. Like, that's just depressing. I was depressed more than anything watching this movie.
Sorry, that was funny.
But it just was.
It is
and
true.
I was just like, seriously?
No.
Like,
yeah, Top Gun is a
it's the
pretty
same
good
thing they did with Luke Skywalker. Like, Luke Skywalker, you meet him and he throws the lightsaber behind him and he's like, oh yeah, I cut myself off from the Force. I haven't talked to Yoda in 55 million years. And, you don't need my help.
The only difference though I see with Top Gun Maverick is Top Gun Maverick is a great movie. No one's denying that. But the first movie is not super great. I did not like the first one. So
that's true.
So by any it was a lot easier to improve, whereas I really like Raiders of the Lost Ark, for instance. It's just, it is what it is. It's kind of iconic. It's fun to watch.
Oh, it's one of the greatest movies of all time.
How are you supposed to top that without disappointing people? Answer is you don't.
You
so
don't
you
top
don't
it. You don't try to top it. That's the problem.
Didn't.
All of these movies try to do. They try to raise the stakes. That's why sequels fail all the time. Bigger budget, bigger characters, bigger set pieces, bigger action, bigger stakes, and it ruins
people
movies.
Get bored. Have you ever played a video game sequel that's exactly the same as the first? I played 2 in a row and I dropped them almost instantly because I felt bored because I've seen it before.
With video games, though, it's different. With movies, though, I'm not saying do the same thing. That trilogy did it. But I don't know. For this, like, it's old man Indiana Jones. You do not need to make him making the audience depressed, because I was depressed watching him on screen. I was just like, oh god. I don't know. I don't want to see that. I want to see Indiana Jones married at the beginning. I want to see his son maybe going off on an adventure and he comes back, hey dad, look what I discovered in Mesopotamia. Maybe you could have had the Shaw character, the girl. Maybe that would have been, his son's love interest or whatever.
I think that if she wasn't in this movie, you would not be talking nearly as much crap about it. And I completely understand. Understand.
No, it has nothing to do with her. Because even if you put someone else in this movie, I was thinking about that on my way home last night. I was thinking, okay, put Indiana Jones' son in her role. Put Short Round as an adult in her role. The story is still bad. It just that's the case. I did not enjoy the story. That's my main qualm with the movie. I did not enjoy the story, so because I didn't enjoy the story, I looked at it differently. When I was bored, I was uninterested, I wasn't excited. Like I said, I was depressed, I was sad, I was miserable in that theater almost, just watching him try and be the action hero that he was. I don't know.
I feel like I don't think that the time travel part was all that bad. I feel like it was their motivations. Because the Nazis, you know, that's a decent reason, I guess. You want to overthrow Hitler, you want to be the ruler, whatever. That's fine. The problem was, Indy said that if he could go back in time, he would go tell his son not to. That was a great moment, but I wish that was his actual motivation. I wish there was a power struggle, but literally, she doesn't want to go time travel. She wants to sell it, and he just doesn't want the Nazis to have it, and that was it. If they all had their own like internal motivations, like she wants to go back in time and change something, the Nazis do, he does, but then he decides for the greater good. You know, it's like that whole play out thing. That would have been a lot more interesting than literally selling it and just not letting them have it. So he could put it
I
in a museum.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just didn't like hardly anything about this movie. I enjoyed the sound effects. Like I said, I'm glad they still had the classic punch, your head explodes when you get hit, like bam. I still love that. I appreciated that they didn't use his whip as often because that's one thing I was also scared they were going to do. Indiana Jones, he's as iconic as ever with his whip. Guy doesn't use it more than like 5 times throughout the
I don't
entire
even think it
series of
was that
movies.
much. He like goes to use it and they all just pull guns on him. And that was kind of
Yeah, like he uses it once in the beginning to disarm the Nazi in 1944,
mm-hmm.
and then he uses it that one time where he says like "get back," and yeah, I was fine with that. That's always been Indiana Jones. He hardly uses the whip, so it's special when it happens.
And I do like that they don't use it as much as in like the first movies, especially the first one. Like it was kind of, even then, just watching it as a kid, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of goofy. I know full well they can't do that. They can't
They
go,
only
around a tree branch and you swing across. Like that's just not happening. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm like,
they only
that's not.
use it like twice in the first movie. Second movie, it's only once, I think, and
Huh.
and I don't even think it's used by Indiana Jones in the second movie. It's when
They made up for it
he's
with the
getting
hat,
whipped.
though. They use that hat all the time.
Like I said, I was starting to get annoyed at some of the things. John Williams music. I don't care if the man is in his 90s. The score for this movie was not good. Or at least, like, I couldn't appreciate it because I don't think it was implemented very well. There was way too many do 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 do. There was way too many of those moments. And there wasn't enough subtle moments. And the
True.
action was so crazy, I couldn't hear the music. Like, I didn't know what the music was trying to make me feel. Like, I don't know. Like, I just didn't appreciate John Williams' score for this, which is weird because even non-action movies, he's got like the best music of all time. He's the greatest composer of all
How
time on movies.
again, it's the thing. How are you supposed to top Jaws? How are you supposed to top Star Wars? How are you supposed? Yeah,
But he's always
Indiana
proven
Jones.
himself. In this one, he just because the movie wasn't that great, the score wasn't that great. I'm sorry.
I still struggle to call it bad or even mediocre. I thought it was fine, if not. It was lacking in story a bit. It was lacking in characters, but it wasn't a bomb. It wasn't a bad. I've seen bad characters. They weren't bad. They were just fine.
I just disagree with that. Like I said, I mean, and I wasn't going into this movie like, oh, I'm gonna hate this, and I'm not gonna disavow. I'm gonna treat this like the black sheep of the family. No, I was wanting it to be good, just as anyone else. Like I said, I enjoy Crystal Skull. I mean, it's got its issues, but I still enjoy it for the most part. And I thought this could be the same thing. It's just there was so many big issues that even the underlying issues started to become bigger issues in the end. That there just wasn't enough good things to level out those bad things. I don't know really how to explain it. I don't know. Like I said, in total, this is a below average action movie, in my opinion. 3 out of 10.
There is I've seen. I
I'm
don't know.
just
I
saying.
disagree.
Like I said, there's
I'd
things
give
that
it a
I liked.
7. I'd give it a 7.
A 7? That's way too high.
On my scale. Where 5 is. It's hard to base 5 as average, but that's what it should be. So
5
maybe
is average.
Most people
5
use
is your
7 as
average.
average, but if 5 is average, I'd give it a 6, 6.5 tops. It was in the fine territory.
Like I said,
Inoffensive,
I was
just whatever.
Oh, I mean, it's not offensive, but no movie's offensive, but
Oh, that is not true, Zeth.
I I just don't. I never need to see this again. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't fun. It wasn't Indiana Jones.
It was so Indiana Jones. It's not even funny. It
No,
was for better or
it
for
wasn't.
worse. I don't know.
I
I
thought the
disagree. Do you
villain
have
was poor.
any other big points that you wanted to bring up about it? Any
The
other
villain
big
was poor.
complaints? Which one?
The villain.
The Nazis?
Yeah, the villain. Mike Mendez or Mike Middles, whatever his character is. The main head Nazi.
What's wrong with him? I mean, besides the
He
fact that
just
he's
wasn't
a Nazi.
interesting.
He wanted to kill Hitler.
I mean,
And he's
near
a
the
Nazi.
end,
Because he,
like,
I know.
that's interesting, but he wasn't interesting throughout the movie. So all of a sudden, I didn't care about him for the most part. And then in the last 20 minutes, he tells his plan, and it's like, okay. And it's an interesting plan. Like,
it is. He knows what went wrong.
Him as a Nazi wants to go back in time and stop Hitler from ever making the mistakes that he ever did. He will correct the wrongs, basically. He will become the new Fuhrer. Yeah, he'll become the new Fuhrer.
Yeah, because he knows how to win now. Because he saw
the problem with that is the time frame he wanted to go back in time to.
Yeah.
Okay, he was like the only Nazi did not appreciate Hitler.
All those other guys are on board.
Well, yeah, but was he gonna just kill Hitler and not expect everyone else to revolt?
Hey, I don't know. He never got that far, so it didn't.
That's just stupid. Like like I said, just the story. Like, I'm not one for nitpicking stories or movies. I'm not. But when the main story doesn't work, those little things in the back of your head start to speak, and that's what happened on this movie.
I see where you're coming from. It is by no means perfect. I just feel like, I don't know. I didn't think it was all that bad. I actually enjoyed watching it. I thought at least, if nothing else, the chase scenes, if not a little long and a little too often, were
I thought
at the
the
very
movie
least
was
somewhat
way too long too. Way too long.
They went on for a bit. I wish they spent more time, like, as you said, going into story, going into character a bit more. Everybody kind of felt pretty surface level.
This movie could have been an hour and a half.
How long was it?
2.5 hours.
It definitely felt it. Like Spider-Verse was 2.5, I think, and that did not feel it. This one definitely went on a bit long. So
yeah, I don't know. This movie is gonna bomb. I hope it bombs. Like, this movie is just not. It's not worth anyone's time. It's not worth anyone's money. It's just not. So it's. I don't know. I'm not recommending
what will
it to anyone.
Be worth our time and money and whatnot. What? That Barbie movie coming out soon.
I'm not seeing that.
Oh, I am so seeing it. It looks so stinking fun. I'm totally gonna go see it. 100%.
I want to see.
Seth, you have Movie Pass. You better see it. And Mission Impossible looks great.
Oh, Mission Impossible. That's day one for me.
They are the king of making the same movie over and over again, and it still being good. I will give
what?
them that.
No. Because Mission Impossible 2 is god awful.
I haven't seen it.
Oh,
I've watched 3 and beyond, and I have a hard time telling.
Well, then you haven't watched the first one.
I watched the first one, got bored. Granted, I was probably 10 years old.
Well, we got to change that. We got a podcast now.
True. We can start watching a couple of those. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be fun. We should go back and we need to do like a.
Wait. Was it something with that in the first one? Was it with the elevator, and the guy got crushed, but then he didn't get crushed?
No. He got crushed. He's dead.
I thought he didn't at the end, and he betrayed him.
No, the guy in the elevator died. The guy that you're talking about is the one that he gets shot. They show him getting shot. The guy in the elevator died, definitely. But me and Dad always thought it'd be fun to bring him back as a villain. Like, you forgot about me, you know. I don't know.
So I do remember it a little bit. It is that one, right?
Yes.
Okay. I could not tell you anything else about that movie. I just remember the elevator.
Yeah. No, we should start reviewing some class. I know we were doing a lot of those classic movies there for a minute. We should do like
maybe once the movie rush this summer kind of dies down.
Yeah. That's true. Last final thoughts. Just I don't think it's worth anyone's time. This movie. I think it's a waste of money. I think it's just a waste of time. It is playing off of the nostalgia of people more than ever now. I just, as an Indiana Jones fan that likes even Crystal Skull, I just didn't like this one.
As somebody who has a friend who, of course, likes Crystal Skull, but not this one, I thought it was all right. I wouldn't say it's a waste of money. So